You know, Michael Jackson's Smooth Criminal is one of those songs that is just absolutely iconic. I mean, you hear that beat, you picture the music video, the gravity-defying lean, it's unforgettable. But what if I told you that behind all of that, there's actually a really dark and surprisingly detailed story? It's like a complete crime report hidden right there in the lyrics. So in this explainer, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to deconstruct the evidence, lyric by lyric.
It all comes down to this one question, a question you've probably sung a million times. Annie, are you okay? See, that's not just a catchy chorus. It is the absolute key that unlocks this entire self-contained story of a crime. So, let's put on our detective hat, we're going to investigate this thing, and our only evidence, the lyrics themselves.
All right, section 1, a crime scene in song. So, every good investigation starts at the scene of the crime, right? The first thing we've got to establish here is that these lyrics, they aren't just telling some vague story. No, they are describing a very specific and very violent location.
And there's no warm-up, no preamble. The song just throws you right into the middle of the action with a forced intrusion. This isn't someone telling a story after the fact. It's like we've just arrived, right in the middle of a home invasion. The danger feels immediate.
Okay, and listen to the language here because it's so specific. As he came into the window, it was the sound of a crescendo. The break-in isn't just loud, it's a crescendo. Now think about that. Using a musical term like that, it perfectly frames the terror as something that's building up, It's escalating the drama of the whole moment.
So a forced entry is one thing, right? That's bad enough. But what the lyrics tell us next, well, that's what turns this from a simple break-in into a violent assault. The intruder leaves behind definitive proof that there was a struggle, making this an undeniable crime scene. And here it is. This is basically Exhibit A. He came into her apartment. He left the bloodstains on the carpet. This single line, this is the core piece of physical evidence in the entire song. Those bloodstains on the carpet are what confirm how violent this attack was, and they officially turn this apartment into a crime scene.
Okay, so let's lay this all out, just like real detectives would. Here's our case file. What we know for sure from the lyrics, the location is Annie's apartment. The key piece of evidence? Bloodstains. The time? It was a Sunday. And the entry was through a window. But look at what we don't know. We have no idea what the motive was. We don't know what weapon was used, if any. And the immediate aftermath is totally unclear. This is where the real mystery starts to build. Okay, Section 2, the victim and the criminal. So, we've got the scene set. Now our investigation turns to the people involved. And what's wild is that using only the descriptions in the song, we can actually start to build profiles for both Annie and her attacker.
And when you put them side by side, these profiles reveal a really terrifying power imbalance. Look at Annie. She's in her own apartment, she's overpowered, she tries to flee. And then look at the assailant, this smooth criminal. He forces his way in, he attacks her, and he leaves evidence behind. The power dynamic here is it's incredibly stark.
All right, Section 3 is all about reconstructing the attack. We've got our crime scene, we've got our character profiles, so now we can actually start to reconstruct the attack itself, piecing together the sequence of events, moment by moment.
And the lyrics give us this chillingly clear timeline. Let's walk through it. Step 1 is the intrusion. He came into the window. Then step 2 is evasion. She ran underneath the table. Realizing that's not safe, she moves to step 3, a full retreat. So she ran into the bedroom. But tragically, it's all for nothing, which brings us to the final, awful blow. She was struck down. It was her doom.
And look, there's that word again, crescendo. There's a sign in the window that he struck you a crescendo, Annie. Remember how it first described the sound of the break-in? Well, now it's being used for the strike itself. It's such a powerful choice of words. It suggests that this attack was the peak, the absolute loudest, most violent moment of the whole horrible encounter.
Okay, let's move into Section 4, the unanswered question. Because this is where everything changes. Once the attack is over, the entire focus of the song just pivots. It stops describing the crime and becomes this desperate, frantic attempt to get just one single piece of information. Yeah, this is the big pivot point in the song. The play-by-play of the attack is over, and the whole thing transforms. It becomes this frantic, repetitive, and, in the end, unanswered question about Annie's condition.
And this chart really puts it into perspective. Look at this. A staggering 70% of the lyrics are just dedicated to asking Annie, are you okay? Only about a quarter of the song is actually describing the attack. So you see, the aftermath, that is the real story here.
So, it's at this point in the story that a new group of people shows up. We have no idea who they are, maybe police, paramedics, even neighbors. The song just calls them they. And this group, they, discover the scene and immediately start trying to help.
And again, the language is so specific. Mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, sounding heartbeats, intimidations. It's this weird mix of clinical, first aid language, but then you get this word intimidations. It creates this incredibly powerful sense of life or death urgency right there at the scene.
You know, as the song just hurtles towards its ending, you can almost hear the scene just devolve. Any kind of organized response seems to break down into pure panic and confusion. It perfectly reflects the absolute chaos of what's happening. And the questioning just gets more and more desperate. It's not just, are you okay anymore? Now it's a direct plea. Will you tell us that you're okay? They're begging for any sign of life, any response at all.
But the answer doesn't come from Annie. Instead, someone else at the scene just screams, I don't know. And this just injects total chaos into the story. I mean, who is this person? Why don't they know what her condition is? The mystery just deepens like crazy right here.
And then you get this. Dang it, Annie. This is it. This is the absolute peak of the frustration and the despair. After all the questions, after the resuscitation attempts, all that's left is this one helpless cry. Every single attempt to get an answer has failed. So after dozens and dozens of these frantic questions, how many answers do we actually get from Annie herself? The number is a big, fat 0. Nothing. And in the end, her silence becomes the loudest sound in the entire song.
And honestly, this is the narrative genius of the song. It masterfully builds this complete, horrifying story, from the moment of intrusion all the way to the chaotic aftermath, but then it just stops. It deliberately refuses to give us a conclusion. It leaves Annie's fate completely and hauntingly unknown.
Which leaves us with one last really provocative thought to chew on. The song gives us a full story with a beginning and a middle, but it never gives us the end. It forces you, the listener, to just sit with that ambiguity. So with no answer given, what story does that silence ultimately tell?